Welcome to Colney Talk podcast.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to the Colney Talk podcast. I'm your host, Alec. I consider this a bite-size podcast. Here I'll be talking about Arsenal football games, post-match highlights, and top 3 players in the game, and one other player lacking energy, gone missing, needing to keep things tight, or pulling up the socks. This podcast really, it's more like just a quick summary of the game, and I just want to focus on more of the positives and trying to look at the game as a whole, where the team is growing. The players that really stand out above the rest are really highlighted. And I just kind of put it in a format where there's just top 3 players, and then that other player, that one player that needs to really step up the game, and that's just about it. So, welcome again. If it's your first time listening to the show, this is how the format is really going to be. Again, I'm your host, Alex, and let's get started. So the first game of the season, Crystal Palace, Arsenal, was really an exciting game leading up to the season. First match, we played with them previously last season, and we really remember the last results we got from them. Wasn't really the best. Just really gave us a lot of things to really look into coming to the season, how we would, strengthen the midfield defensively, relying on Partey to really be the stronghold there was never going to be the answer coming back into the season. We needed to get someone to help support that. So we started out the game well. Looking at it, it just really stood out with high intensity. Everyone really, the flow of the game was just magnificent. There was just this confidence of how they were playing. And I'll mention this again. I'll mention this in my subsequent podcast, where they were playing in threes. It almost felt like that's the formation of how their minds are flowing with where their exit is in terms of ball passing. And it just really built that confidence for them and their decision making. So, overall, the game was really a very tight and intensive game. I'd admit Crystal Palace are not really the lower teams that you would think that they may be, I know they're not really that, but they really came ready for this game. Playing at home, Crystal Palace, it's never an easy ground, I remember, and I've heard so many people say that. So it was a very, very exciting game. Nervy at times, really nervy when we got caught up in different positions, and great saves to just keep us in the game, because one goal on the other side would have turned things around. So so for this now, I'm going to talk about the top 3 and then the one other player. And just before I get into that, this one other player outside of the top 3 may not be bad, could just be lacking something, or was just a bit off, in the 7s and the 8s, when you have all the ratings for these players. But, my way of avoiding that, or just making it so convoluted, is just calling out this one player who I feel either wasn't really there or had the best, missed chances, or things that would have made him either be in the top 3 or just done his standard job of playing really well and being good with the rest of the other players. So for this game, the top 3 players are Saliba, Xhaka, and Jesus. Odegaard is the other player that needed another gear for that game. Even though he played well, there were just moments when he just got caught out. He missed out clear shots and he was the main target of the press. Now, that's not a consequence of being the other player, but he really would have done more to become one of the top 3 or not. But he just didn't stand out much, because I guess in a sense, they targeted him, did not get the ball as much. He did impose himself in some ways. He did move around really well, but just when he had those chances to convert them, he just didn't do that. So that's an example of why he's the other player. So I'll start with Saliba. His defending was so very alert. His physicality, was just in this game was very standout. Shut down the right side of Palace's offense. You could see how calm he was on the ball. The calming effect he gave that back line is very clear. You hear that with so many other people talking about this over the social media. And then, in this, I'll give a credit to Ben White, defending Zaha, because he's no easy player to defend. You can see that you can see he's very physical. He plays tough. He moves for a guy that size. Ben White really stepped up to that matchup for right back, which is not his primary position. So, the poise in Saliba's distribution from the back, it was just so clean. He just seemed like he had been in this team for over 2 years, which he wasn't. Just slotted right in, played really well. And I repeat, for someone this age as a defender playing at this level, it's not normal. It is not normal. So, all credit to Saliba, and he really played very well in the back line, just slotting right in and just doing the job, and really giving Ben White that confidence to go forward and really play his game. In fact, it almost felt like he gave Ben White a little bit more authority to really put his whole defensive prowess on Zaha. So that was really good. The calm effect and the ability to shift gears when he was able to move in and clean balls that were just loose. They needed to have a hefty release on, having to play in different moments in that back line. There were nervy times, and he came in and he swept up. He was very alert. When he got to the ground to clear the balls, he really did it in a smooth way, not just getting on the ground quickly. And you would think that was his main way of defending, but no. As I mentioned, gave Ben a lot of confidence. And looking at the passes, by Saliba, it just only can get better. I mean, it's just amazing. Balls that were in the box, he just handled them really well. He cleared all the headers, so it really helps that he's a tall guy. So Saliba and Gabriel at the back, when it comes to headers, heading the balls or throwing the balls in the box, I think we're okay there, really okay. So that's one of the players there. Xhaka is one of the top three. I must admit, I did not see Xhaka as a box-to-box midfielder. It's always said that that's what he is. This was the first time it came to fruition, relatively speaking, in the game. He was getting to the box, trying to, take shots, really doing midfielder would do. I don't think anyone imagined him doing that. So he really came alive in that game. And as I mentioned earlier, with the movements and the passes, he created this, passing coordination with Zinchenko and Martinelli, and he flourished really, really well in that side of the game. I think his passing presence really helped absorb the midfield pressure from Palace, because they really brought it. Palace were really known for bringing the pressure. Once they put us on the back foot, you make mistakes, they catch you on the wrong side, and they can just take advantage from there. So we really give credit to Xhaka, really making sure that we were clean and we were really out of danger when it came to some of those midfield pressure, which they really did extensively, first half and second half. We learned from our previous games against Palace how they boss the midfield, how they can just cut off the channels for Odegaard, or not even make Partey really present in the midfield. We learned from our lessons in the previous games, and we try to adjust, and I think we did a very good game, or we just handled it pretty well and just absorbing a lot of that pressure. I wouldn't say we did it perfectly, but I think we did a good job there. I wish we were very dominant in that area, because it's always a thing of a pride when you see your midfield really bossing the game, moving things around, dictating how passes can really get through. Again, Xhaka did that in this game, really not bossing the game, but absorbing some of that and really moving the ball forward, sending those channels for Martinelli to push back and get those crosses in and trying to make some shots, which he did a few times. And Xhaka did drop back as well, to cover for Zinchenko, and that was very critical when he's switching up play and going forward. He just did that, and I think he takes home one of those top spots. But I'll say for this game, he's flopping. He needs to do some work. I think he needs to get some theatric going on there. But I'm sure they made fun of him in the training session after the game. Now, my other player, Gabriel Jesus, I mean, he was the engine of the game. Since he joined, he's been so infectious, so energetic. He presses like a man with a hair on fire. I mean, he plays so well, like he has been there again. Let's just say it's the excitement. But he the commitment to the ball, the press on and off the ball, the way he would battle with defenders bigger than him, and he would really win those battles and keep the ball. I mean, I can't say enough about him. His movement in the box, he can be the decoy. His passes, this is a credit to who he is as a player. He's just so good. And when I mean infectious, he brings this swagger of, I'm going to score, or I'm doing something, I'm going to cause some havoc in this box, and you all are coming with me. And I mean, he's coming in with Martinelli, he's coming in with Odegaard, he's coming in with Saka, and even Xhaka too. So they really came in from the forward side of this game, coming to cause problems. He did that. A couple of shots were really blocked, like Harry misses that would have gone in either way, but you could just see it. It was just evident as day. Anyone just watching the game would say, who is this guy in this position and what is he? And he was very clear with that. And he takes the third spot for my top 3 players. And now that guy, the other guy, was Odegaard. He needed that other gear. I mean, his passes were good, but he got cut out, ball watching as in the box, which obviously is not his position, but the way they switched out things and, in his moment of marking Eze when that pass was slotted in, it would have been another clear goal that, would have caused us more problems and putting us in more pressure, which we already were. He had another opportunity to just shoot. Yes, granted it wasn't his left foot, but he could have at least tried to do that. Easier said than done, I get it, but that was not a thing to make a pass in that moment before making that shot, and it didn't come out on top. So that was just one of those things that you would call out. And then, knowing that he was going to be the victim of being pressed in the midfield, he didn't really come out squeaky clean. Being press resistant, usually he does that, the way he moves around and finds other pockets, which he usually does. So it's first game, so I wouldn't really be so hard on him in that. He has to remember, he does definitely remember the last meeting against Palace. Odegaard was completely shut out, couldn't really do anything. He was gone missing. There was a good amount of opportunities where he would have had an outlet, which would involve Xhaka, Nelly, or Saka, but it just didn't really work out so much. But those are how it really turned out for the game. So yeah, those are my top 3s, and my one other nominee for the other guy for the game. As I mentioned, this is my bite-size podcast. You're listening to Colney Talk podcast. Again, I'm your host Alex, and thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.